Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this video, I'm going to be going over some left-hand strategies for teaching Spring Song by M.L. Daniels. Spring Song is a wonderful piece of music to teach your students, and it has a lot of sharps, flats, and naturals, and they can learn the difference between what they are and how they work. A lot of method books teach fingerings, right? High two, low two, extended two, instead of teaching the entire tetrachord as a concept. And that's why I use names for my finger patterns instead of numbers. For example, I say major pattern instead of the 2-3 pattern. One system describes the spacing between the second and third fingers, and my method describes the sound. Where students typically get confused with sharps and naturals, especially if you teach the 2-3 pattern, is on the G string. And it's because most of the method books start on the D string and everybody plays the 2-3 pattern, and then you do it on the A string, lots of 2-3 pattern stuff, and you spend like a page or maybe less than a page on the G string, and then they never get to it again. So what do they learn? F sharp is high 2, C sharp is high 2. Then they move on to book 2, and then they learn the naturals, the low 2 and for F natural, and the low 2 for C natural. And they do the G string for like a page, but they mostly focus on the D and A strings. Now, how many of you have trouble with your students with their fingering pattern on the G string? How many of them think that B natural is low 2 or second finger for cellos? How many of your basses play C sharps on the A string? It's because they equivocate a sharp with a higher fingering and a natural with a lower fingering. Another issue I see in the public school system is the first couple of years, the groups are mostly playing grade 1s and they don't run into anything except for the 2-3 patterns. And then when they get to year 2 and year 3, they're introduced to these lower fingerings, the 1-2 patterns. And then they conflate the year they're playing with the finger patterns. Like, I'm a third-year player, right? And third-year players play the 1-2 patterns, right? Because the 2-3 pattern, that's for the first-year and second-year players, right? So, how do we disambiguate? If we look at how Bornoff set up his students, the patterns are all side-by-side, right? So here's the cello stuff, and by the way, this is brought to us by the Foundation for the Advancement of String Education. Check them out at their website, buy their stuff, go to a workshop. It could be a game changer for your teaching. But here we have the Bornoff finger patterns. Bornoff numbers them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're all side by side, and they're meant to be done on all the strings so that they're not conflating this stuff together. They're just looking at the whole tetrachord together, all side by side, so that they can see the difference. How often is that used in other method books? I don't see it very often. And the advantage is that the Foundation for the Advancement of String Education, who are the custodians of the Bornoff method, is that the patterns are all done on all the strings. And so in my teaching companion, I have them play the major pattern, really get it in tune, really spend some time making sure they play everything in tune. Then the minor pattern, 1-2. Each pattern is right next to the other one so that they know the difference between the F sharp and the F natural. On the G string, we do the same thing. C natural first, and then the augmented pattern with C sharp right here. And it's as it appears in the music. So we're in D major, and we're adding the natural, and then here I don't add the courtesy because that's the way it appears in Spring Song. Now, you don't have to stop here. In fact, you can go on here, and when you're learning and teaching the rhythms, one of the ideas is that you take the finger patterns and you use these rhythms and apply the rhythms to the finger patterns to add the technique along with the rhythm, and this can really help. So, okay, let's do the finger patterns in whole notes. Okay, let's try the finger patterns in half notes. Let's do them on the quarter notes, and you do them 4 bows per note, because if you're doing them 1 bow per note, it's probably not enough time for them to get everything really dialed into the tuning unless your students are really comfortable with the patterns. You can even do these mixed rhythms, you can do the whole measure as open D, and then do the measure as a first finger E, and then F sharp, G, etc., all the way up the pattern and all the way back down. I do work on every finger pattern every day in class on all the strings, but when I'm transferring the skills to concert music, I hone in on the technique that's used, and only the major, minor, and augmented patterns are used in spring song. The biggest issue in spring song is probably going to be the G string notes. Students are going to be likely to have the most issues here on the G string, so I would spend more time with your students on that string, and you're going to be really happy if you watch my previous video on tone production, because it's going to pay off here in two ways. Number one, the G and C strings are going to be way better with tone, and it's going to be easier to hear and tune. And when we're dealing with finger patterns, we're focusing on the intonation, right? So if we have a good tone, it's easier to hear and easier to match with your students, and they're going to learn much, much quicker. And also, and if you paid attention to that video and you focused on the vibrato exercises, their hand positions are going to be more relaxed, and they're going to be able to push much harder with their third and fourth fingers because they're not going to be squeezing, and they're going to be able to transfer the weight down to these weaker fingers, and it's going to pay off a lot. If you didn't watch that video and you don't believe in all of that tone stuff, it's going to take longer, it's going to be more frustrating, and you're going to be fighting against the bow and the left hand. So later on in the teaching companion, I have these chromatic patterns here that the students can go through, and here it's very isolated. So we're just doing fourth finger D and C sharp, or crossing strings here on the cellos and basses right here, and they're just getting used to the difference between playing the C sharps and C naturals. And I do this going up from A to B flat. And then we have the B to C sharp on the A strings. And we've got the G to F sharp on the D string. G to F natural. See, we compare the difference, we speed it up, we add slurs for the eighth notes, because that's what we see in spring song. Now, if you're playing through spring song and you see this and you see how it relates with the teaching companion, we've got C sharp to C natural, got the C natural to D here, and the D to C sharp here with the slur. They've got the technique that they need. And then here in the low strings, we go from B to B flat to A to B flat, just like it is in the teaching companion. We've got the G to F natural here, and then it's F sharp later, so they can learn the difference between the natural and the sharp. And the other advantage to the teaching companion is that the whole class is learning this, not just the section that has it in spring song. They're all learning the technique, and they're learning how that notation affects the pitch of the note. What does a sharp really mean? It's not a finger, okay? It means something different in music. What does a natural mean? It doesn't mean low two, okay? And that'll keep them from playing B naturals low 2 on the G string, because they won't make that mistake. So if you're paying attention in this video and you're taking notes, you know, you've written down everything that I've got here in my teaching companion, so you don't really need it because you can do all this stuff by rote. But if you are purchasing it, I really appreciate your business, and it really supports our channel. And I would prefer that you use your school district's money, because I really feel bad when orchestra teachers spend their money out of pocket to pay for this stuff. And I think that your school district should really support you and get you this stuff. But if they won't, you know, just send me an email at teachingorchestra@gmail.com, because I don't want anybody to pay out of pocket for this stuff. Orchestra teachers have enough problems, and, you know, buying teaching companions shouldn't be one of them. So, hey, get your school district to pay for it, or I'll send it to you for free, and you can use that money to do something crazy, like buy groceries or something. In the next video, I'm going to be going over the common problems in spring song, and I hope to see you then.